Hi makers, it's Tegan here at the MyClayCo studio. I'm going to be here today running you through how to use small and intricate cutters. There is nothing worse than when you get a cute new cutter and you go to stamp it out and that clay gets stuck in your cutter. You don't end up with your gorgeous earrings at the end, and you also end up with potentially a ruined cutter. So I want to run you through what I have found are the things that help with using these small and intricate cutters. I've got some of our garden cutters today. They're quite intricate. They've got a lot of details. We do them quite small. They're going to be a really good example of how you can use these techniques so that you don't end up with those issues of clay stuck in your mini cutters. So let's get stuck into it. The first hot tip that I have for you is to burnish your clay. If you don't know what this means, it basically means that you take your preconditioned clay, you roll it onto a gloss tile so that it sticks, and then when you cut it with your cutter, it will stick onto the tile and not in your cutter. We get quite a lot of questions about what type of surface do we cut on, what is the tile that we use. It is literally just a kitchen or bathroom tile. So when I purchased these, I just went to a local tile shop. I asked them if I could grab some samples and they charged me about $2 per piece. I picked up these white tiles. For me, as a preference, I prefer to work on a gloss tile just because I find that the clay does stick better to a gloss tile as opposed to a satin. I also prefer a white tile to work on. The main reason behind this is just because my creative brain doesn't get muddled when I am putting together colors for my earrings that I'm working on. So for example, I might have if I'm working on a blue tile, I might not realize that something needs some blue tones added to it. So as you can see here, when you do burnish your clay, all that you're doing is rolling that preconditioned clay onto the tile so that it sticks, and then you can simply just cut out your pieces. It's really easy, and I have to say this is the way that I use all of my cutters, not just my intricate ones. I do use this whenever I'm stamping out my pieces just because it's so easy and works so well. The other great thing is that you can also just pop this tile straight into your oven, bake your pieces. You don't have to slide them off and transfer them onto something else, and it just means that you're not going to end up with distorted shapes, which is fantastic. So my second tip for you is to use a release agent. So what this means is using something such as water or corn flour, dipping your cutter in it so that it helps release the cutter. My preferred option out of these two is to use water, purely because corn flour can leave a little bit of a residue. When you are using water, you just dip the clay into a little bowl of water, brush it off slightly, cut your clay piece out, and just put it away. Using corn flour, there are two ways that you can do this. You can dip your cutter into the corn flour. The other option that you've got is you can brush over your clay lightly with corn flour. One thing I will say about corn flour, please make sure that you brush off the corn flour before you actually bake your pieces. We have these awesome brushes. They're very similar to a makeup brush. They've got very fine, soft bristles so that you can just brush all of that corn flour off nice and easy, and you're not going to end up with little scratches in the clay. If you do leave that corn flour on your clay when you bake it, you will find it extremely difficult to get the corn flour off afterwards. So I find that is a very important step. I do have another hot tip for you. Rather than using corn flour, something else that works great is either a pigment or a mica powder. So for instance, if you have blue clay that you're working with, you can dip it in a blue mica powder and use that as your release agent. It does mean that you're not going to have that corn flour residue that you have to brush off afterwards, and you can also get a little bit of shimmer, which is never a bad thing. So our third tip for you today is to roll your clay slightly thinner. So when we make earrings, we normally do them to a thickness of about 2 to 3 millimeters. So if you are using particularly those small cutters or smaller cutters that have an imprint, just rolling your clay slightly thinner will help a lot. We normally roll our clay to a thickness of about 2 to 3 millimeters when we're making earrings. When we are using those small intricate cutters, we like to go more on the side of 1.5 to 1.8 millimeters. We do actually design all of our smaller cutters so that they have a slightly shallower imprint depth. So it means that it lends itself to you rolling your clay a little bit thinner. And it'll just mean that those imprints don't dig too far into the clay and get stuck and come out in your cutter. The fourth method I have for you today is the multi-cut method. This is so great for those intricate cutters. I'm using a Luna Moth cutter today to demonstrate this for you, but essentially what you're going to do is press your cutter halfway into your clay so that it just taps that imprint, pull it out slightly, leaving it still in the clay because you don't want to lose your spot, push it back in a little bit more so it just ever so slightly goes into that imprint, and then take it out again slightly and then push all the way down, and that helps with just getting that perfect imprint, perfect cut, and it means that when you do pull it out that third time after you've done those multi-cuts, it's not going to get stuck in your cutter. Last but not least, this is probably a lesser known tip for you guys. When you are using particularly those real tiny smaller cutters, but also ones such as our Luna Moth that do have those skinny bits on them, you want to pull away from the most intricate part of the cutter. So what I mean is, in this demonstration here, we're using our tiny little B cutters. They're only 10 millimeters. We're pulling away from the most intricate part, so you can see where it's got all those stripes on the B. That's where we've chosen to pull away there. So those are our top 5 tips for using small and intricate cutters. If you've enjoyed our video today, please like and subscribe. We also enjoy all of your questions and comments, so drop them below.